All right, good morning again. We're on our second panel today in the Marine Corps Theater. Today as we close out West 2023. Very fortunate for this panel to talk about the Marine Corps C4 challenges and opportunities. And this panel will be led by Colonel Dom Ford, who is the Assistant Chief of Staff G6 for 1MEF. And without further ado, I'm just going to turn it over to Dom, and he can introduce his team, and we'll look forward to invigorating discussion. So thanks for your support and participation, Dom.
Thanks, Mike. Can everybody hear me? Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming to what I think is going to be a fairly lively panel. First, I'd like to thank AFCEA and the Naval Institute for putting this on. I think this is something like my 15th or so AFCEA West, right? So I remember coming here as a young captain, and just this is the place, if you're in the IT field or a communicator, to just soak up what's going on. And also as it's a good way to meet folks from industry, other services, and develop like a community. So I look out here, I see so many familiar faces. It's like a family reunion out here. And it's really special to me because this is my last AFCEA as a uniformed Marine, right? And then about 6 months I'll be Mr. Ford. So a huge thrill to be up here, and just really appreciative of AFCEA, the Institute, and our industry partners. I gotta mention you all because none of this happens. The Marine Corps doesn't make radios, right? We don't make computers. We don't make satellites. You all do. So this exchange, some of the younger Marines are like, industry, they're just trying to sell you something, and it's a jaded view, and it's a territorial protective view, and it's an immature and naive view because we can't get anything done without you. So my hat's really off to the industry partners here. We have, a fantastic panel here today. What you have on at the table here is really the key leadership of 1MEF's C4 community. We've got Colonel Jima to my left, the Blue Diamond G6, and right beside him is Colonel Cunningham, who's first MLG G6. Then we got Colonel Nelson, Comm Squadron 38, Red Lightning, commanding officer. We got Jason Quinter, 3rd MAW G6. So you have all the MSC G6s, and then you got Colonel Roman, who is our 9th Comm Battalion commanding officer. And I'm not going to waste time, the panel's time, going through bios. You can look those up. But just needless to say that this is a group of folks that are the right leaders for our Corps. They're the next vanguard of exceptional leaders. Is guys like me kind of ride off into the sunset. And it's really good to share the stage with them and really get their perspectives on what's going on. So we're going to have a good time. Ask us hard questions. And before we get into the panel, who here saw the ACMAC talk, the Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps? Okay, not a lot of people. I'm just going to talk for probably 3 to 5 minutes on just a level set. The ACMAC called it terms of reference on the Marine Corps and who we are and what we're doing, and then 1MEF like as a whole. And then I'm going to unleash the talents of these individuals here on the stage. But and I'm kind of rephrasing what the ACMAC said in his keynote earlier this week. We are an amphibious force. We do amphibious assaults, and they might be smaller or different than before, but we still do them. And we seize and defend naval bases and execute land campaigns in the furtherance of naval campaigns. We're built as a combined arms team force for service with the fleet. We are naval and we are expeditionary, and double focus on expeditionary. That means being able to do more with less in short order and being able to improvise, think on our feet. That's our Title 10 mission. We're an amphibious force that will fight from and return to the sea, says our ACMAC. We are MAGTFs, combined arms. We are a Pacific-focused Corps now. At any one time, we have combined armed forces, two of them that are 2/3 of our Corps' combat power, and we're focused on operating within, we're global, but our focus is on the Indo-Pacific these days, particularly getting west of the international date line. That's what we're all about. And on any given day, our Marine Corps has 20,000 Marines west of the IDL. But we're also capable of operating globally, as 2MEF just recently demonstrated with their brilliant efforts in the European theater. We're also now, as a Corps, we're about 4 years into our force design initiative, where we really took aboard distributed maritime operations and decided that our contribution to that is EABO. Those expeditionary advance-based operations, and our offering was, we've got to get back to the fleet, and we have to offer something that is relevant to the current fight, to our peer threat, which is China, right, and be able to operate in a manner that gives them pause in phase 0, and then can be a credible threat to them, one in which we can prevail in the South China Sea if we go into kinetics. So we're talking highly distributed, mobile, small, sensing, long-range fires, recon, counter-recon capabilities. We're 4 years into that, and we've gotten a lot done. That's kind of the 50,000-foot look at force design. In those last 4 years, we've got some really tangible accomplishments. I encourage you to view the ACMAX, the video of him talking when he just lists it all out. But things like, we've got 3rd MLR, right, Marine Littoral Regiment, right now, operating in training in 29 Palms. Right, closing kill chains, honing their craft, and learning, because this is a threat-informed concept. We didn't just make this up to make it up. It's threat-informed. We O-plan this. We have a campaign of learning, and that campaign of learning continues. But we have an MLR. We're going to have 12th MLR here in the next year and a half or so. MQ-9, that's flying, and that'll be shifting from the CENTCOM theater over to the Indo-Pacific. Gator radar, highly capable. Rogue Nemesis, a new kinetic offering there. CH-53, the Joint Forces only heavy lift helicopter, in the inventory. That's reality now. So it's more than C4, but the C4 is integral in this, and that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. But we're moving out as a Corps when you're talking about networks. We've got an aggressive network modernization plan. I think it's the portfolio is close to $1 billion over the FIDIP. And we're moving out on modernizing our enterprise networks, on collapsing tactical domains. And I almost started the panel with D. McSinn, let's discuss, but I'm not going to do that. It's an internal joke. But we're, we as a service just made the decision that we are collapsing our tactical domains and going to have them be absorbed into an enterprise, which will have to get retooled. Because the vision right now is, I think we all know, especially in the Beltway, the business mission areas can take hold, right? And we have largely a business mission area network, and that has to evolve into a warfighting network that can also support business mission areas. Right now, that's the inverse. That's a huge challenge, but we've got some great draft documents. We have a concept of employment that's going to be quickly followed by a detailed plan with very specific transition criteria to help guide us over the next 2 years in how we do that and transition. A little bit about OneMEF. OneMEF provides the Marine Corps a globally responsive, expeditionary, and fully scalable, all-domain MAGTF, Marine Air Ground Task Force, capable of generating, deploying, and employing ready forces and formations in crisis response, forward presence, major combat operations, and campaigns. That's our mission statement right off the webpage. That's what we do. We're the Marine Corps' largest combat formations, numbering almost 50,000 Marines. We have a global footprint. In 2022, we were deployed to 21 different locations, 15 countries, every combatant command, and that includes 4 regimental-sized units where we were. No longer encumbered by coin fights and low-end fights dominated by the Central Command. We are primarily focused now on the Indo-Pacific, and particularly the southern portion of that, the Philippines and Australia. That's the AO that IMF has been assigned in that theater, and that is immensely powerful. It's a new situation that will make our peer threat, China, take note, because now we have two MAGTFs, two core-sized elements operating in their backyard, and we're looking at every opportunity, every chance that my boss, Lieutenant General George Smith, gets. We are flooding the zone with ready capability to have that consistent deterrence presence that can quickly shift into kinetic operations. As an example right now, we've got 13th MEU as part of the Makin Island Amphibious Readiness Group operating with the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group in the South China Sea. Time now. We have MRF-D in Australia operating with our tremendous Australian partners. Time now. We're about to fall in on Exercise Bala-Catan in the Philippines, where there's going to be two MEFs converged in the Philippines, west of the IDL here in another month or so. So we've got a lot going on. We continue to experiment. One of the things that makes us really busy is we're generating these forces, which we used to just be a force generation kind of capability. Now we're generating forces, we're deploying forces, and we're C2ing forces from back here in CONUS. So MRF-D is not OPCON to a fleet or to 3 MEF. It is still OPCON and C2'd by 1 MEF back here. Really unique. On the C4 side, and I'll let the panel get into this, and I promise I'm about to shut up. We run our own Nipper and Sipper warfighting warm start network. Day on, stay on, NOx and SOx, 24/7, and that supports exercises and worldwide operations, right? You name it, that network does it, and it gets better and better every day. We've collapsed all our domains in the MEF. We have one warfighting domain, so our MSC's 3rd MAW division, it's a flat domain. One of the things one of the other things we're doing that we'll get into is we're racing towards commercial SATCOM. When everyone's talking about cloud and zero trust and on-prem, off-prem, the Achilles heel, in my opinion, of cloud is transport, right? We're still trying to figure out, study ongoing right now, is what data needs to be forward, what data needs to be reached back. We're working through that. But at 1 MEF here, we're contributing to that. But in the current fight, we're just making sure that we're posturing and we're setting that theater, and the philosophy is resiliency through diversity, every path. Some of our challenges, I'll just say, and I'll let the panel climb in on this, is what keeps me up is cybersecurity. For too long, we've been fighting tough adversaries, but weren't sophisticated, and we have weighted availability over security, and we are out of balance. And we have holes in our skill sets in our MOSs. We should not have divested our 0689s. It was a terrible mistake. We're learning from it right now. We've got to rebalance, and that's a cultural change because, like Captain Perez says, it's get it up, get it up, get it up, and that's no more. Not against a peer threat. You've got to get it up right. It's got to be stigged. When you've got your scans running, your 100% scans, are you scanning everything you think you're scanning? Those basics. So we have some work to do there. And then lastly is training. Just getting Marines to training, right? Success based on where they are and what they have, that's a phenomenal outfit. It's in the wrong place. We need to relocate it out here to the tech sector here, that's San Diego. But if anyone has about $500 million that can loan the Marine Corps, we can get that done. Okay, enough about me. What I'm going to just do is we're just going to go down the line, starting with Quab here first, and take like 3 to 5 minutes and talk about what's going on and how you see the environment and challenges, opportunities.
Okay, appreciate it. Colonel Kwabanajima here. Got some Blue Diamond, not only alumni, but some current serving here in civilian clothes undercover here to heckle me throughout this. But a lot of what I do is enabled by them. I'm just partly the good idea guy who gives them kind of task and intent, and they run with it and act on it. So when I got to the division this summer, the division was coming off of the MAGTF warfighting exercise. And that exercise was a force-on-force exercise that illuminated a lot of suggestions, but also a lot of good lessons learned and good after-action comments. The good news is the division actually built off of that exercise going into what we would call Steel Night in December, which was a major, I think many of you heard of it, large-scale exercise that included the Navy, different elements, other MSCs across a large geographic area. So we got through the Steel Night, but as we wrapped up MWX heading into Steel Night, force on force was one of the key components of that. We've learned some of our lessons through force on force play, but force on force has typically for the division been ground centric. In the multi-domain area that we are operating in now, how do you do force on force in the information environment, specifically space and cyberspace? So that's something that the division has realized over time, and it's something that the division had to employ at MWX and build off of that. So at MWX, the division did a couple of things. They at the division level, headquarters level, at the CP, the forward CP, they went after the commanding general and his command and control, UAS systems and space-based systems to see how they would react using the find, fix, track, target, engage criteria. So they had to, learn to operate within the information environment and be sensed and targeted and adapt to it. And that brought many lessons with it. Fast forward as we were heading into Steel Night, I think there was a recognition amongst commanders across the division that they had to start to evolve their thinking and change, specifically for the information environment that exists today. Another example in 29 Palms, California right now, as mentioned by Colonel Ford, with the regiments out there, specifically 7 Marine regiments, battalions. 3rd Marine Division has come over from Okinawa and is hunting 7th Marine Regiment's battalions, right? So that force on force isn't just ground centric. It is primarily focused on the information environment and going after them in space and cyberspace. This became a science project for us in the G6 to scramble and go get additional Starlink terminal to get to the regiment, because now we are having to move beyond the geostationary satellite orbits that we have and offer LEO to the units to get around it. So what I'm saying is the diversity within the information environment, what I would call maneuvering in the information environment, going between different satellite orbits, is something that commanders are having to learn now. And the good news is the education from these force-on-force exercises is driving them to ask for resources that enable them to move within that information environment. Cyber. So 9th Comm Battalion and the COs down the line here, Jeff Roman at the end, same thing. We had to find a way to where we get our DCO IDM, right, Defense Cyber Operations, internal defense measures, onto the network where they can also, patrol the network and make sure that the network is protected. So two things are coming into play here, right? For force on force, how do you change? I think the old model was for the OPFOR, it's easy to gather somebody who is like you and has been ground centric to fight against you. But what tools, authorities do you have to do that from space and from cyberspace in an exercise, right? In order to make units ready, you have to create that. And then you have to execute it and execute it well at the unit level and move through that. So there are 2 elements that are involved in doing that. So I think force on force allows us the opportunity to exercise a lot of this. What it has shown us is that, for you industry professionals out here from AFCEA, that there are technical solutions to working in the information environment, helping us hide, helping us maneuver in the information environment, and we're going to rely on you to come up with those solutions. The force-on-force areas are allowing us to illuminate some of that. Steel Night, we executed, I think, pretty well. All the command and control items were met, but we're in a different era now. I think legacy or traditional communications, in terms of what commanders needed to do officially by mission essential task, was to command and control. Full stop. No one said command and control in a denied, degraded, or contested environment. And so now that change is occurring, and it's requiring commanders to have to adjust to that environment. And it is not necessarily written in their mission statement right now, but with force on force and the threat environment that they're being informed by, it's causing them to change and adapt. Something else, I'll close with this. As the division knows that it has to engage itself in fight now scenarios, one of the biggest hurdles we've got and challenges we've got is deploying the force. We understand, and as the ACMAC and 1MEF CG has mentioned, you got to deploy the force, and it's going to be a logistics problem. So I think oftentimes we come to these forums like AFCEA and we get capabilities in hand, and then we're satisfied with that. But we don't necessarily have the capabilities in country that are created in country for us to fall in on to get around the logistics problem. And so I think we kind of have to evolve our operating model with the vendors and figure out how we and the vendors are going to position things in the key countries that we need, not necessarily CONUS-based to deploy to there, but in the countries we need internationally, right? What type of agreements need to be done to shape that? That's where we could use help from a division sense. We call it setting the theater, right? And we see in the Philippines that there's been a recognition by that, by the SecDef. But now how do we further that? Because a tactical unit can't go do country agreements with vendor-specific capabilities in country. So I'll close with that. I'll keep it kind of short just so we can come back with questions that we can answer. Thank you.
Sir, thank you for hitting some of my points there. I can just pass the torch on right now. No, thank you, Colonel Ford, sir, and to all my colleagues for being here with me. Lieutenant Colonel Tom Cunningham, I've been the G6 at 1st MLG for about 18 months. If you all indulge me real quick, how many MSSG alumni do we have here? How many FSSG alumni? CLR 15. All right. All organizations, as you well know, no longer exist, right? One of the things that shocked me the most, and I've enjoyed the most actually, out of being at 1st MLG, is that it is constantly evolving. For most of us, or for many of us, that comes with a lot of frustration, right? Or it has over the last 20 years. But it's been necessary, and it's been something the MLG has been challenged going through many times. But it has, in the end, certainly helped the MAGTF. I think everybody would agree. So working for Brigadier General Fritz, a couple themes that I want to focus on here rather than getting into technology-related things, as I'm sure we'll cover those in due course. His mantras, a couple things that stick out for him. He wants a culture of extreme readiness. Now, as Marines, we know what that means personally. We know what that means if we're Marine leaders. But do we really know what that means for our processes and our technologies? In the MLG, I'm still trying to answer that 18 months in. But it is an interesting perspective to approach things from. Some of the formation changes I'll get into here, some of the things that are happening within the MLG, I'll talk about a little bit because I think that'll inform, again, some of the technology discussion. The MLG has evolved over the past 20 years to become more cross-functional. We're pushing capability down. The old MSSG days, you had your functionally aligned battalions that lined up to one function of tactical logistics. No longer. We've moved into the CLB model, and we're continuing to move down that road. What does that mean? Smaller SWAP C, ability to operate independently, be persistent, be distributed, all these other things we're going to talk about. We're continuing that trend. Although we've pulled back a little bit in our formation design as far as we're going to evolve here, I see that trend continuing within the MLG. Colonel Gima also hit another key element here that we're seeing in real time. Like you talked about with pre-positioning and forwarding capabilities, that certainly goes as far as the uniform side is concerned. It's a very heavy priority for the MLG. If we can't get it there, phase 0, it's going to be really hard when the shooting starts to be able to persist and succeed in conflict and crisis, and then to pull back into steady state. So we're working that on the uniform side, but the vendor piece, I'm so glad he brought that up, and I would definitely reinforce that. If you as industry partners can figure out how to get yourselves forward and persist through all of the challenges that will come from any kind of crisis and conflict, not being able to ship things, fly things, etc., that'd be fantastic for us. In the interest of time, I'm actually going to stop there and keep it very brief, like I said, but so happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity again.
Well, since my fellow staff officers are hitting all the technologies and the big broad picture, I'm going to put my commander hat on for a little bit and talk about how, as the Comm Squadron CO, Lieutenant Colonel Angie Nelson, what we're doing to support at echelon and increase lethality within the MAW and the MEF. And two ways that we're getting after that is we're modernizing our formations. My image of Comm Squadron was Comm Squadron 28 as a young captain, a big sprawling air base at Leatherneck, and running fiber and supporting everybody, and even burying some commercial fiber that probably got dug up at some point over the last few years. So what do I want to do? I want to modernize my formations at Comm Squadron 38, meaning I want smaller, lighter, more flexible debts that I can send where they need to go. Because with Force Design 2030, the control groups inherited all the MWSSs. So now within the control group, we have two of the pacing commodities for EABO to be successful, bandwidth and gas. And I'm the one that's providing that bandwidth. So I've got to find a way to be able to send 2 or 3 comm dudes and dudettes in with an MWSS to put an airfield in that might only be there for a few days. So that's where I'm trying to modernize. The other piece, the other line of effort, operationalize the experiment or operationalize the exercise. We have to treat every exercise and experiment that we're doing over the next few months as mission rehearsal. It could be the last one that we get before we actually go execute. So what are we doing? We're fighting tonight with the equipment we have and attempting to inform the enterprise on the software solutions that can bridge the gap between 2 programs of record that might not talk. Find solutions that you can deliver to us now, not a widget that you're going to give to me in 2 to 3 years that is a proprietary item that can tie 2 things together. Give me a software solution. I also want that stuff so that I can integrate as much data as I can for the control group to produce target quality tracks, meaning I'm going to partner with the Air Force. I've been partnering with the Air Force to integrate their system, their sensors and their systems into our network so that we can see the picture that they're seeing. Any opportunity I have to work with the Air Force, I jump on it. And I also borrow their equipment, and sometimes I give it back. So all of this to be saying, we are executing what you're seeing on these JADC2 PowerPoints. We're actually executing at Comm Squadron 38 right now. It's not just on a PowerPoint. The Marines that work their butts off every day, they're actually executing that. And I think there was a comment made during the MCTISA panel about a 40-year-old versus a 23-year-old. Let those Marines loose on the equipment and they find some interesting ways to make them talk. So to kind of close, because I know the 2 gentlemen to my left are a little more opinionated than I am, I'm going to talk about the last thing on my commander's hat. How do I retain the seasoned pros? How do I get those young Marines to re-enlist, whether it be quality of life, training opportunities, travel opportunities? As a commander, those are things that I've been focusing on for the last 7 months, which is my first 7 months in command. So, and I'll close with, as communicators, we are sometimes the product of our own success because we find ways to make things happen with less. We've got to learn to brief in capabilities-based ways. We've got to say, hey, this thing might look like it costs a lot, but if you don't spend it and you don't do this, these are the capabilities that you're going to lose and you're not going to move forward. So I'll close with that and move it over to Colonel Quinter.
Thanks, Angie. I guess before I make a couple remarks, just want to thank the Naval Institute and FCA for hosting such a great event. I got to be here all day Tuesday, and in addition to what Colonel Ford said, just seeing old friends, both in uniform and out of uniform, and the tremendous opportunity to reconnect with some people. It's just, a pleasure to be here. With all the panelists, the senior communicators on the West Coast, we don't get to see each other. We're not often in the same place at the same time. So an event like this is always welcome. So I guess we can talk about a million different things today. I think Angie and I are both from 3rd Mall. I think she talked to you about what it's like from a commander's perspective. As a G6, I think my primary mission is to support Angie and every single one of her Marines. And I would say, there's nothing really that keeps me up at night. I'm not going to use General Mattis's quote, but I think looking at the audience here, we have a lot of tech vendors from all sorts of different companies, and I think that I believe in the ingenuity of American companies, and I think right now just want to make sure everybody appreciates the situation that we're in. We need tech bad right now in our formations, and I came from the Joint Staff. I worked at the Pentagon. The 2 years I was there, working in the J6, I helped author the JADC2 strategy. Also was the C4 Cyber subject matter expert for the National Military Strategy. And so I say this all the time. JADC2 means different things to different people. And it really does. I talk to people and that don't know my background, and they'll tell me what JADC2 is, and I'm like, eh. And I remind people, there's a reason the J6 was drafted and wrote the JADC2 strategy, because it's fundamentally about the network. And so data is the 5.56 round of the future. And so I know there's a lot of focus right now on the information environment, and rightly so. We've got MCDP-8 and some other documents internal to the Marine Corps. It's a warfighting function now. But data is the 5.56 round of the future, and the weapon system is the SIPRNet. And so JADC2 is fundamentally about closing kill chains. And I just want to emphasize that those kill chains are going to be closed on the SIPRNet at machine speed. And so, General Lori Reynolds used to say this all the time. She'd say the SIPRNet's a weapon system. And I would say maybe it took me, maybe a little short on the uptick, but it took me a couple years before I really appreciated what she meant by when she made that comment. She would say that all the time, but I think I understand what she's saying now. When we talk about machine speed, we're talking about networks, and so that's the reason why the JADC2 strategy was written by the J6, and that reference architecture is a tool that you folks in the audience that make tech for us could use. And Angie talked a little bit about get me solutions quickly, service-oriented architecture and open interfaces. Like, that's what we need. We wouldn't need JADC2 if we didn't have an interoperability problem. We have companies that make more than one piece of equipment for the DoD, or those two pieces of equipment made by the same company don't talk to each other. Obviously, that's problematic on the battlefield. So we're working on something in 3rd Mall called Project Dynamis. And so Colonel Ford mentioned the Marine Corps' network modernization plan. It's a pretty long document. It's hard to get through because it's got some really, really good detail. I would say if there's one thing we could do together, in the FMF, it's that last 5 tactical miles. What does that network need to look like down at the formations inside, in our case, inside 1MEF? And so JADC2 and Project Dynamis is a project we're working on. It's a paper that I wrote, and cross-referencing the network modernization plan with the JADC2 strategy to find commonality. And because right now, obviously the PPBE cycle is pretty slow. It's problematic for if you're in the fleet. When you work inside the building, or you work at Mark Corps Syscom or CDD, that's the role that you have. You're program officers, portfolio managers, you're working in the FIDIP, you're palming for programs. And obviously, I'm not saying anything that anyone who works in the Pentagon, to include OSD and the Joint Staff, they don't talk about every single day, our senior general officers. The cycle it came from the 1960s when McNamara came over for Ford Motor Company. It's pretty slow. But it's what we have right now, so we have to operate within the laws that frame the process, right? But what we can do together out in the fleet is experiment. And in the units, Colonel Roman, Colonel Nelson, Division, Wing, we in MLG, we do this every day. So if you have tech that you think would be helpful, we're almost doing requirements development in reverse. I should be giving you ICDs, and you should be bidding on those with contracts. right now, because the tech sector and the telecommunications industry are able to make tech so quickly, you're bringing us solutions and we're reverse engineering the process. That's just the world that we live in right now. So Project Dynamis has got 4 lines of effort. One is the tactical SIPRNet. So the NetMod plan talks about the data network itself quite a bit. We're in formations in the fleet right now where we are responsible for leading the communications Marines, the 06 XX MOSs that are out there actually hooking all this equipment together to make the SIPRNet. And so, there's a little bit of detail that we still need to work out inside the formations, and you can help us with that. LU2 is aggregating data, okay? If you're going to weaponize data, you got to get it in the right place at the right time. Some of it needs to be on-prem, some of it needs to be in the cloud, but cloud is a critical requirement, right? The third LU is federating data. We have all these authoritative data sources in the military, and the Marine Corps has some of their own, right? TIFSMIS being one. Behind Marine Online is giant databases full of our personal information and our professional information, right? Those are all authoritative data sources. We need to weave that fabric together so we can weaponize that data, okay? And then LU 4 is educate the force. And anybody in here that has been doing communicate, if you're a communicator, whether you're a retired communicator or active duty communicator, you'll know what I mean by this. Sometimes the commo starts talking and the eyes start rolling back in people's head. I would say, foot stomp this. Command and control is a warfighting function, and we need to start treating it like that. We've created an animal where we've allowed people to just put comm over here on the side and we kind of just go do some of that comm stuff. So our community's got our hands full right now. It's 2023. These are the same folks that you're talking to that will wait in line at the Apple store for 3 hours to get an iPhone 14. So in their personal life, they're technologists. In their Marine Corps life or their military life, it's not why some people join the military. We've got to blend that together. So we got our work cut out for us. It's not impossible, but we've got a seat at the table for a reason. What we do is important. And I think the more we could convince people that SIPRNet's how we're going to close kill chains, the more they'll value the contribution. Not saying that they don't value us, but we can open people's eyes. Because I tell people this all the time. If you're closing kill chains at machine speed, what you're talking about is semi-autonomous warfare. And what changes warfare over the course of time, from the Peace of Westphalia to 2023, is technology. And right now we're talking about ones and zeros doing that. So just something to think about. We got to change the paradigm and get people to understand that those kill chains are fundamentally going to be about the network. And so I'll kind of stop there. We can go on and on about JADC2 for hours. Hopefully you'll have some questions for us up here, but I want to turn it over to Colonel Roman because I know he's been doing a lot of great things for years and years, and he's in a position right now where he's making an outsized impact as the CO of 9th Comm. So over to you, Jeff.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate that. Hey, everyone. Good to see a lot of familiar faces here. Captain Allen, Major Castro, really good to see you here. One of the things I want to hit on is, so I've been in the MEF for the last 5 years. 2018, I was the 7th Marines S6, fleeted up to be the 1st Marine Division's G6, so sat in the same seat that Colonel Jima's in, and then got slated for 9th Comm while in that seat and went across the street and took over about 18 months ago. A lot of lessons going up from the 06 level to the MSC level, with the 2-star and now working at the MEF level. Really working directly for one individual, but supporting day-to-day another individual. So we're part of the MEF information group, so very much involved in the ISR side of the house and targeting side of the house through that. And then directly supporting Colonel Ford at the end of the table here, who's really the mission owner for the tactical network that we run in the MEF, and supporting him, and really through that supporting Lieutenant General Smith. So in doing that, 9th Comm Battalion is a really interesting beast right now. We've always been large. So we got 1,100 assigned personnel right now. DCO is growing up at the rapid rate here in the next year when their FOC will be at 1255. So we just have a tremendous amount of capacity in the formation. And a lot of what we've been doing is unlocking that capacity in a really meaningful way. And so when you look at 9th Comm right now, it's a full spectrum telecom, IT, cybersecurity, and defense capability. And really over the last 6 months, we've been working on the other side of that cybersecurity coin with compliancy, and doing that from a MEF level, network operations center, security operations center, that provides performance monitoring, deployed support, cybersecurity, and defensive cyber capabilities across the entire MEF architecture, while also being vertically integrated with the mix-in. Not just technically vertically integrated, but also through processes that we've been reconciling and working with, which I think is really timely with Task Force NetMod and where the Marine Corps is going, so that the FMF has a pretty strong voice in what we need this future network to look like, and to really inform design of what that network looks like. So one of the key themes I want to hit on is, and especially Colonel Quinter and Colonel Gima hit on a lot of big, high-level objectives that we're moving to. From a real practical level, what I want to hit on is, before we get into software factories, before we get into edge processing, and implementing technologies like that, we got to get transport right. And right now we're moving in a really good direction with transport. But I can tell you, within one MEF, we treat transport holistically, whether it's network transport or beyond line of sight transport or even critical line of sight transport. The Marine Corps has not gotten there yet. So what I would challenge is, within SysCom, look at PEO cyber, look at command element systems, and look at how tightly coupled PM SATCOM is with the TEP program of record, and those who manage that program. We need to get those two joined at the hip. We need to get programmatics aligned with transport and how we treat transport in the FMF. We can't bifurcate it. We can't treat it separate. It's got to be one effort, combined, mutually supporting each other. We talked about the 0689 MOSs. We lost that a number of years ago, and we're feeling the brunt of that. Within the 067X MOS, I've got to make a deliberate decision as a Comm Battalion commander who I align to data systems and who I align to cybersecurity. And then, because of some of the outdated orders, some of the issues we have with the manuals, I also have to develop my own training program on how to develop and enhance the skill set of my Marines. And I'll tell you, the Marines are capable. The Marines are exceptional. And everything that I have asked them to do, they have done it to a higher level than I even expected. And so when you look at the capacity that's organic within the formations that we have in the MEF, that's in direct support of not just the MEF commander, but all the MEF commanders, that's really who we need to empower with what we're talking about. We can talk about technology and the good thing that technology provides, but I go back to warfighting, it's all about the people. And technology is just a tool to help the people do their job. So whether we're talking about man in the loop or man on the loop, people are going to be involved in this in some way, shape, or form, and that's where the investment needs to be. And as an officer, whether at a regiment level, at an MSC level, or now as a commander with Title 10 authorities, it's all about training, equipping, and getting my Marines ready to go forward and go into the WES, go into the first island chain, into the Pacific. So when talking about transport, one of the big efforts we've been working on with Chief Warrants Rivera, who's sitting down there, and Colonel Ford's been fantastic working with us on this as well, is SATCOM as a managed service. One of the mantras I've always lived by is build what you must, buy what you can. And I think commercial industry, that there is a paradigm shift from what the government used to be able to develop to what industry currently provides, where industry has tremendous capabilities that far exceed what we have in the Marine in the military DoD inventory right now, and that's what we're tapping into. And I'm not just talking about getting pipes up and getting services established, but I'm talking advanced protection features. So when we look at electronic protection, electronic support capabilities, when I talk about maneuverability in the spectrum and being able to operate where the adversary isn't, where I'm able to obfuscate my transmission pathways and hide within the natural noise, one satellite that's supporting 1 million users that doesn't distinguish my traffic with my Type 1 encryption running over it, but where I can blend into that environment and still hide, within that noise. That is what we're looking for. And I think that's really important, and it's aligning our PACE plan, not just a transport PACE plan, but a services PACE plan with MCON, electronic control measures, and being able to make sure that as I get more restrictive with INCOM, that doesn't mean I get less lethal. Right? It should be a direct proportional relationship between those two things. It should not be an inverse relationship. And commercial industry is helping us achieve that. SATCOM is a managed service. That is now a hybrid architecture. And what we're seeing and really generating the demand signal for is that industry, I think, is realizing, especially in the commercial SATCOM sphere, that it's not about bent pipe. It's not about tactical gateways and hubs. It's about end-to-end capabilities where terrestrial transport, whether it's commercial ISP, MPLS, AT&T pathways that are getting established, it's those being able to interconnect further upstream from the Marine Corps network environment and being able to route back and forth, because that's how we're going to lower latency. When we talk about target data, it is all about getting as high quality target data as possible to move over those pathways so that it's at that level where I can send it directly to a weapon system and I don't have to do any processing on the ground to get it to that point. And latency is a critical piece of that. And it's not just space-based pathways that are going to enable that, it's terrestrial transport and making sure we eliminate the number of hops that traffic has to go, that it can go directly from where that data is originating, we're at the greatest point of need, to that weapons platform. And that's something we're hoping to really inform and design with what we've done in the MEF with the Fleet Marine Force Tactical Grid and a lot of the lessons that we've learned over the last 5 years that we built out of necessity because the service and it wasn't ready to provide us a solution. Well, I'll tell you, now the service is ready to provide us a solution. And we're ready from the bottom up to be able to inform what that solution looks like from a design standpoint to ensure those attributes that I'm discussing are resident. And then the last thing that I'll say is, and I'll tell you, if there's anything that keeps me up at night, as a guy who's lived and breathed multiple tours into a 1st Marine Division and with Marine Expeditionary Units, it's about making sure that within the FMF and within each MEF, we retain ownership of that capability. You know, I'll tell you, for the MEF, CAC-2S is a TO weapon for the MEF. There's no doubt about it. And that TO weapon system is worthless if the network is not running. And so when I look at the Marines and the MNOC and MSOC, and I include the MSOC in there as well, because this is also about cybersecurity and defense. You know, when we look at area defense capabilities at the MEF level across that global network, and then point defense capabilities with my DCO teams that go forward and embed within those systems to provide direct overwatch and coverage, you know, it is a holistic view and it's holistic support. But the reason why we can do that is because we own every part of that ecosystem. And we can control through the tactical boundary the interconnects that we establish to 613th AOC, to DCGS-5, to 7th Fleet, to 3rd Fleet. We can manage that. I can set those up on a dime based on whatever CAC-2S terminal's coming up, and then when it's done, I can tear it down so that I'm not accepting undue risk for the MEF commander. Because that risk, that is CG-1 MEF's risk, right? CG Mar4 Cyber may own it in cyber and ultimately be the one who owns that end-to-end, but it's the MEF commander who's managing risk across all the domains, and he needs that capability organic to be able to do so and fight this fight that we're going to go into. So when I look at what we're doing at the Comm Battalion and a lot of these lessons that we learned, when I look across the MSCs with all the work that's going on within the comm community, you know, what it really highlights is, you know, when I was an instructor at Officer Comm School, we had, you know, up there with BCOC, Enable C2, right, Enable Command and Control. I'll tell you, it's not just about enabling command and control. It's about enabling C5 ISRT. It's about establishing a surge C5 ISRT and everything that falls within that. And that is what we do because we are the underpinning, we are the linchpin that's going to allow us to be successful in the future. Over.
How about that? Eye-bleeding talent. Eye-bleeding talent. Tons of questions. A couple of things I want to riff on, and then we'll open it up. LOE 3, what Colonel Quinter was talking about the data, right? The Marine Corps recently established a data officer of the Marine Corps. That is a key billet. We can't do cloud without a data strategy, and you know, unless we get these formats right. So MarCorps Syscom can take that data strategy, go Roger that. Now I know what standards to hold industry to as well. And then I'll just, before we open it up, I'm going to channel my inner CG here, because he always tells me, you know, ultimately the network has to enable the MEF commander to generate and maintain tempo across all domains, right? So as we get this new network and we evolve it to what we want, lethal, low latency, enterprise, right? You have to start with the O plan. It's no longer base post station. Right, you know, the Marine Corps Circuit Management Office is shifting to the MCOG. Like the MCOG needs to start getting O-plan briefs, like probably more often. And when you look at architecture and design, it needs to start with O-plan XXX. What's our primary threat? What's our peer threat? What's our number one O-plan? That's the foundational pillar on which the enterprise network has to be built. TCOM, Training Command, MICRIC, right? Important, but no longer the most important and no longer equally important, right? One network to rule them all, dominated by warfighting. Okay, people are chomping at the bit. I think we got microphones up here, so come on up and tell us who you are, where you're from, what you want to know.
Howdy. I'm Jack Turner. I'm the local San Diego FCA chapter president. I'm the president and CEO of Excite Systems Engineering Company. We're building an application for Space Force Delta 8 Narrowband, used to be RSTRAT. They manage the MUOS system. And once we were able to break through the acquisition team down to the user of the application, we had tremendous success. Could you tell us what we could do to help you give us access to the end user of all these applications so we can get that DevSecOps chain working for the person who's actually going to use this, soldier marine that's actually going to use the applications we're developing? How can we help you support that?
I see my Mark Cisco friends out there in the audience smiling. At the MEF, it's just not, it's a balance, right? You're not necessarily, you're talking a little bit about, I think, experimentation then, or on emerging or current products that we have, actual planning. Is it program of record, or is it an emerging program of record? Emerging. So I think that's simple enough where all our experimentation kind of starts with McWill, right? So we don't have the Wild Wild West. So they're the mothership for all experimentation, right? We have a G9 or G9. We're in the field and we're joint staff, so JAG. We have a G9 that we've stood up. That's kind of our belly button for experimentation and things like this, and it's very measured, deliberate. We only have so much bandwidth. That's a good place to start. If it's something minor and you're just trying to get user feedback, you could probably engage one of us, and we can see if we can help you. But everything we do, we don't want to go off the reservation, and we want Mark Syscom and McWill partnered at the hip. I don't know. Does that answer your question, sir? Yes.
I think I could add to that. Yeah. So you may or may not be aware of the fact that the Marine Corps is about to stand up the Marine Corps software factory this summer in Austin, Texas, at Austin Community College, where they're going to co-locate with the Army's software factory. So they're just put the first 6 Marines through the DevSecOps pipeline and build a team of software coders, basically. The magic that they'll be able to provide the FMF, if they don't all end up at Headquarters Marine Corps, will be application programming interfaces. And so what does that mean? We'll have Marines that have a fundamental understanding of DevSecOps, service-oriented architecture, infrastructure, software, and platform as a service, and that could actually write code in Jupyter Notebooks and Python. We don't have that in the Marine Corps. So if you're working with the Navy and the Air Force and the Army right now, they have thousands of these people in their formations. So that capability is coming. Those are the people that you will talk to in the future that will understand how software is written, and they'll be able to answer your more practical questions. Right now, you'd be talking to a gunslinger or a pilot or something like that. And so we don't quite have that capability yet, but it's not far off. And also the challenge with that will be how many people we could push through that pipeline and how long will that take? Because right now, as you know, we redesigned the Marine Corps with force design. So we have about 4,000 to 5,000 unfunded billets that, unless Congress increases the size of the Marine Corps, those are approved. That's approved structure that we don't have people for. So that took a little while before we could find the first group of people to go, but the capability's coming.
I'll just build off of the question you've asked, because I think it's a great one, and it applies a little more than just the development ops that maps back to what Colonel Quinter was talking about. And it depends on the capability. If you're talking about like SATCOM terminals or routers or switches or wireless capabilities or 5G and these other things, MSCs are looking for that, right? And we will coordinate with the G9 absolutely and be tied in with McWill and the rest. But get it to the customer and get it to us for free. Let us use it as a limited use capability that we could take to the field and deploy. We will do the work on getting the IATO, right, the interim authority to operate. Sentinel is an example of that. We needed a chat solution coming after MWX. We found they said there was transverse, compromise, so we have to use something else, and we needed an interim solution. So we use Sentinel chat right? We got it IATO'd, and that's what we used in Steel Knight, and now we are going for a full ATO and potentially a purchase for that. So reverse engineering the way we've done things is absolutely where we're at. So getting it to us where we could use it, limited use case. If it doesn't have a cost associated with it, it actually writes the requirements document, and we get that capability later.
Good afternoon, gentlemen, ma'am. I'm Captain Shea. I'm the MOTS 1 S6. Just a career question as like a mid-grade captain is traditionally, if you want to make a career out of the Marine Corps as a commo, these are the billets you're going to want to fill as a comm squadron or battalion CO and eventually a G6. But in the last few years, our community is changing a lot. Whether that's having new commands like the MiG or McCog, network battalion opportunities, as well as just the breadth of knowledge that we have to learn with the information environment changing, MSO. So if you could put yourself in my shoes as a mid-grade captain who may want to make a career out of this, one, what training and what experiences would you be looking to get, and what do you think some of those new opportunities that you might take advantage of?
Jeff, you want to tag team this one, Jeff?
I mean, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask this question to because I never made choices based off what I thought would be good for my career. So, it's worked out okay. But I did 2 tours in division as at 11th Marines in 2.5, and then came back as the regimental S6, and then worked out because I got to fleet up to be the division G6. But when I did that, I was told it was career suicide. But I said, that's okay. I want to go do what I love. When I went to the MU as a captain, as a 6 Alpha, right, I see Captain Allen sitting right there. I was told that was career suicide. I need to go to get company command. But again, I never made career choices based on what I thought was going to enhance my portfolio or my record. I did it because I love being a Marine, and there were aspects of a commo and aspects of where I wanted to be a commo that far outweighed, my longevity in the Marine Corps, and that was my calculus that went into my decision making. So do what you love, man. Life, you can't stop the clock, and time's limited, so do what you love. That's what matters.
I would also...
I actually definitely agree with Jeff on this one, that find the jobs that you're passionate about, because those are the jobs that you're going to excel at and be really good at. But yes, this is the Marine Corps, and let's all face it, there are certain key billets that we have to hit. That's the bottom line. And Jeff's an outlier because Jeff's a giant, and I think people are just like scared of him or something. But there are going to be key billets. Knowing a little bit about your career, you have had 2 back-to-back comm tours. It's probably time to go hit a B billet not associated with comm. It's time to get your PME done if you haven't completed EWS. We all got to do that. But I think I probably have one of those careers where I've hit all of the MAGTAF and had the opportunity to go do things that I was passionate about, like working in the Senate, going and hanging out with the Air Force on joint duty and at command and staff. It's those opportunities, like Colonel Roman is saying, take advantage of them, do what you're passionate about, but still realize that this is the Marine Corps and there's going to be certain key billets you need to hit.
Yeah, I think we're up. Hold on, you have an announcement?
Yeah, we're going to let this continue to go on. I know there are some people that are slated to go to the CNO luncheon. It starts in about 8 minutes, but obviously invigorating discussion, so you guys can continue on, and these guys will be available as long as Dom keeps them here. All right.
Can I quickly chime in?
A formal round. You're gonna go. We're not done. Just an applause for these guys and lady. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. So one thing I want to chime in on with this is we traditionally view the military career-wise as being very linear. I'm saying this more for your Marines as much for you. We have programs now with talent management that may or may not work themselves through the way we envision them working themselves through, but one, for example, that I would like to highlight that I think is very relevant to a lot of the industry partners here is the Career and Admission Program, right? A lot of enlisted Marines I've talked to are like, I could be making 4 times as much on the outside, and I say that's great. Have you really thought through whether that's a priority in your life? Is money really everything? And maybe it is. But wouldn't it be nice if there was a way where you could maybe put the Marine Corps on hold for a little while, see if the grass is greener on the other side, but keep that tether to the Marine Corps? Instead of just having the reserves, now you have that additional option. I really do see talent management, going down that road. I see other options coming from it, but I would encourage you to think of that. And again, more so for your Marines. I've had so many of these discussions for how to, trying to retain younger Marines. Don't just think of the military as a linear career path anymore. And for industry partners, think about recruiting that Marine maybe for a couple years and then sending them back. And not only are you getting that capability for 3 years or whatever it is, you're sending something back to the Marine Corps. You're sending a little insurgent in there that can help you write requirements and do other things in the future,
Hey,
Great question.
if I could just add one thing and make it a pitch to the Marine Corps, especially since we all have a very highly technical MOS, advanced degrees aren't bad. And we should be sending more of our technical commos to get those technical degrees, those advanced degrees. And the Marine Corps should not hold it against them if they're out of the fleet for 3 or 4 years, getting that degree and using that degree in a billet that actually employs it.
I'll just add that I think it's a matter of time. Some of the ones who made those decisions that cut people's careers short are dinosaurs in the Marine Corps, and they're moving on as well, right? I just sat on the top-level school board, and we had some folks who made career risk lateral moves over to the 17XX community, and now at least one of them is going to MIT Lincoln Labs, and another is going on to top-level school. I personally know of another former communicator. We were instructors together at basic comm officer course as well, who decided to get out of the Marine Corps, come back into the Marine Corps after the reserves, and then lateral move into the 17XX MOS as a major with 0 command opportunities in the 17XX MOS. Mar4 Cyber created structure and commands in their own chain. He was able to go that direction and pick up command that way, and now he is going on to command at the 06 level at Mar4 Cyber. So, like I said, it's only a matter of time, and some of us who've had non-standard career tracks, like going to join as a major, are beginning to get to more senior levels of the Marine Corps, and I think that time is going to allow us to change that. That also, as we talk about retention and incentives, you all are at a different place in the Marine Corps than we were in our career, right? You actually have choices once you pass career designation. For most of us, it was 20 or out with nothing. You all have TSP matching, and it's not out with nothing anymore. So I think it's going to drive a change in the Marine Corps.
I'm gonna add to what everybody already said and kind of reinforce a couple things. One, Colonel Roman, I think that's good advice. Follow your heart, do what you love to do. You don't get to. There's no do-overs. But this guy over here, Tom's gonna laugh when he hears me say this, because when he and I worked together, I don't know, 15 years ago, when I was a captain, he was a lieutenant. I asked my lieutenants this: do you want to be a battalion commander one day? Because not everybody does, right? And that's okay. And talent management accounts for those people now, and there's opportunities for them to excel in other ways that are still useful to the Marine Corps. But I would say my advice to you is you're a Marine first. And my value to the Marine Corps is I would argue at this point is more dependent on what I know outside my MOS than what I know inside my MOS. Meaning I do need to be technically proficient, otherwise I won't be allowed to be the G6 or do any, command any comm formations. But you're a Marine first, and your ability to do what Colonel Nelson said and kind of branch out of your MOS a little bit. When you come back, you'll be able to explain things in a way that's useful to people that aren't communicators. And I think when I was younger, that was the more difficult task. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, and then to just close this out, I have a more kind of specific recommendation, and it's a curiosity too, because at EWS recently, the monitor asked all the commos, their captains, who wants to go be a MU S6 Alpha, and no one wanted to do it, right? And I'll go back to what the ACMAC said: we are from the sea, from ships back to ships. And I will just put in a plug for the MU that as an S6 Alpha, don't let the Alpha fool you, especially if you're doing split arc ops. That is the place where you can learn the most about your craft as a company grade officer. I would say tremendous opportunity. And yeah, there's no hiding there, but if you're humble, you take care of your people and your junior Marines, they will teach you. That's the most amazing OJT opportunity I think you could get as a young captain is go deploy. That's why we exist. That's why we go to the rifle range. That's why we go to medical and dental all the time, so we're deployable. So if you want to apply your trade as a true communicator, I can't think of a better place than the MU S6 Alpha. All right, next question? Anybody? All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up there. I'd like to thank everybody, and I'll just end on this note, because as I look at this table and you're thinking about 1MEF, like, so next month is 20 years, OIF 1, right? This time 20 years ago, Comm Squadron 38, Group 38, was Colonel Quinter's about to take over Group 38. We had the TAC set up, an internal look. That's called cheating the tib fit, right? Oh, it's an exercise. We had the entire TAC set up, ready to go, right? Mauled fist. I'll say we're trying to do the same thing today. And that's another reason why we have Get Marines west of the IDL and set up these sites that we're doing, is because if you're flat-footed, when those indications and warnings come from our peer adversary, it's too late. You've got to be in the theater. So at every turn, we're trying to cheat the tib fit. But, you know, come 20 years ago, I think we had something akin 1MEF reinforced by 2MEF. Like, we were a super MEF. We had the bulk. It was all of Comm Squadron 38 and just about all of Comm Squadron 28, to include their commander, Ken Gill, you know, and Rod Taplin and Dave O'Chevy set up a microwave network that's the equivalent, with Track 170s, Tropo, that's the equivalent from here all the way to Vegas, right? We rated 0 SATCOM at 3rd Mall, 0. We had a 93 van that tucked in with the division, and it just went on the march up. It would set up airfields, and then we'd get in Tropo and breakout services, and we daisy chained that thing all the way up through Iraq. Then went back OIF 2, modernized Al-Assad. Now it's a piece of crap again. You know, waxes and wanes. But that was 20 years ago. And I'll tell you, the leaps and bounds in technology, again, assisted by industry. You know, I think 3rd Mall you rate close to 30 SATCOM terminals, right? 20 years ago, rated none, right? So it's fits and starts. It's not perfect, but it's amazing what we can do with our industry partners when we focus. And the next focus is what everybody talked about. So again, hats off to everybody, and thanks for coming and listening to some communicators talk a little bit about what we love. Thanks.